What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors walks onto a morning show set expecting a normal interview, only to be blindsided by a host who seems determined to humiliate him in front of millions of viewers? In just 33 seconds after one particularly offensive comment, the entire interview would explode into chaos, ending with a legendary star storming off set and leaving the host speechless. In what would become one of the most shocking moments in morning television history, Samuel L. Jackson arrived at the studio that morning like he had done countless times before. The veteran actor, known for his incredible performances and his no-nonsense attitude, was there to promote his latest film. He walked onto the set with a smile, greeting the crew members warmly, shaking hands with the producers. This was supposed to be routine, just another morning show appearance, another chance to connect with fans and talk about his work. But from the moment he sat down across from Savannah Guthrie, something felt different. There was a tension in the air that he could not quite place. The camera started rolling, and Savannah opened with what seemed like a standard question about the new movie. Samuel answered thoughtfully, discussing his character and the themes of the film. He was articulate, engaging, giving the kind of answers that make for great television. Then Savannah shifted gears. "So Samuel, I have to ask," she said, leaning forward with a look that seemed almost predatory. "There's been some talk about your age. Do you ever worry that you are getting too old for these action roles?" Samuel paused. His expression did not change immediately, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or the first spark of irritation. "Too old?" he repeated, his voice calm, but with an edge to it. "I am in better shape than most people half my age. Age is not about the number. It is about what you can do." Savannah laughed, but it was not a warm laugh. It was dismissive, almost mocking. "Well, sure, but let us be realistic here," she continued, waving her hand as if brushing away his response. "You are not exactly a young man anymore. Don't you think audiences might want to see fresher faces in these roles? Younger actors who can really pull off the stunts?" The air in the studio got colder. Crew members behind the cameras exchanged glances. This was not normal interview territory. This was personal. This was an attack. Samuel sat up straighter in his chair. His jaw tightened slightly, but his voice remained controlled. "Fresher faces?" he said slowly. "I have been doing this for decades. I have earned my place in this industry, and audiences don't come to see my movies because of my age. They come because I deliver every single time." But Savannah was not backing down. In fact, she seemed to be enjoying this. There was a smugness in her expression, a sense that she thought she was in complete control of the situation. "I suppose that is one way to look at it," she said with a slight shrug. "But I have been reading some of the comments online, and a lot of people are saying that maybe you are holding on to roles that should go to the next generation, that maybe it is time to step aside and let younger talent have their moment." Samuel's expression hardened. His eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that could cut through steel. "Comments online?" he said, his voice dropping lower. "You are going to sit here and tell me about comments online? Random people who have never stepped foot on a set, who have never put in the work, who hide behind screens and tear people down? That is what you are basing your questions on?" Savannah shifted in her seat, but she pressed on, seemingly unable or unwilling to recognize the line she was crossing. "I'm just saying what a lot of people are thinking," she replied, her tone becoming more defensive but still carrying that underlying arrogance. "The industry is changing. Maybe it is time for you to accept that and move on to different types of roles. Character parts, maybe. Supporting roles instead of leads. That was it. That was the moment." Samuel leaned forward, his entire demeanor changing from professional courtesy to barely contained fury. "Let me tell you something," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I have worked my entire life to get where I am. I have put in decades of blood, sweat, and tears. I have shown up on time, knew my lines, gave everything I had to every single role. And you are sitting here, on your comfortable morning show set, questioning whether I deserve to be here? Whether I am good enough?" Savannah tried to interject. "I did not say." "Yes, you did," Samuel cut her off, his voice rising now. "That is exactly what you said. You think you can disguise it as concern or as journalism, but what you are really doing is disrespecting me. You are trying to tear me down for what? For ratings? For clicks? To make yourself feel important?" The studio was dead silent, except for Samuel's voice. Every crew member, every producer, everyone was frozen, watching this unfold. This was not supposed to happen. Morning shows are supposed to be light, fluffy, safe. But this had turned into something else entirely. Savannah's face flushed red. She was clearly flustered, caught off guard by Samuel's refusal to just take her comments and move on. She tried to regain control. "I think you are overreacting," she said, attempting to sound authoritative but coming across as dismissive. "This is just a conversation. I am allowed to ask tough questions." Samuel shook his head slowly, a bitter smile crossing his face. "Tough questions?" he repeated. "No, tough questions are about the work, about the craft, about the choices an actor makes. What you are doing is not asking tough questions. You are being insulting. There is a difference, and if you cannot see that, then you have no business sitting in that chair." Savannah's eyes widened. She was not used to being challenged like this, not on her own show, not in front of her own crew. Her sense of entitlement, of being untouchable because she held the power of the platform, was being shattered right in front of everyone. "Excuse me?" she said, her voice sharp. "I have every right to ask whatever questions I want. This is my show." "Your show?" Samuel said, standing up now. He began removing the microphone clipped to his shirt. "This might be your show, but that does not give you the right to disrespect your guests. I came here in good faith. I came here to have a conversation about my work. Instead, you decided to make this personal. You decided to attack me." Savannah stood up as well, her hands gesturing frantically. "I was not attacking you," she insisted, but her voice was shaky now. "You are being overly sensitive. If you cannot handle a simple question about your age, then maybe that says more about you than it does about me." That was the final straw. Samuel pulled the microphone completely off and tossed it onto the chair behind him. "You know what? I am done here," he said firmly. "I am not going to sit here and let you talk down to me. I am not going to let you use me to boost your ratings while you insult me to my face. I have better things to do with my time." Savannah's expression shifted from defensive to panicked. She realized, perhaps too late, that this was spiraling completely out of her control. "Wait, Samuel, let us just take a breath and," she started, reaching out toward him as if to stop him from leaving. "No," he said, cutting her off one final time. "We are not taking a breath. We are not doing anything. I am leaving, and you can explain to your producers why your interview just fell apart." He turned toward the edge of the set, where the cameras and crew were still frozen in shock. A producer stepped forward, looking desperate. "Samuel, please, can we just—" the producer began, but Samuel was not stopping. He walked past the producer, past the cameras, heading straight for the exit. Behind him, he could hear Savannah trying to salvage something, anything. "Well, I guess that is. We will take a quick break," she stammered into the camera, her composure completely shattered. But Samuel was already gone. He pushed through the studio doors and into the hallway beyond. His mind was racing, but he felt no regret. He had stood up for himself. He had refused to be disrespected. That was what mattered. Back on the set, chaos erupted. Producers were running around, trying to figure out what to do next. The segment producer was arguing with someone on a headset. Savannah stood alone on the set, her face a mixture of shock, anger, and embarrassment. She had thought she could control the narrative. She had thought she could push and prod and that Samuel would just take it because that is what guests are supposed to do. They're supposed to smile and answer the questions and be grateful for the platform. But Samuel L. Jackson was not just any guest. He was a legend, a man who had earned his place through decades of excellence. And he was not going to let anyone, no matter how powerful they thought they were, diminish that. In the control room, the director was frantically trying to cut to a commercial. The phone lines were already lighting up. Social media was exploding. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation would be everywhere. People could not believe what they had just witnessed. What made this moment so powerful was not just that Samuel walked off. It was how he walked off. He did not yell. He did not lose control. He simply drew a line and refused to let anyone cross it. He showed what it looks like when someone with dignity and self-respect refuses to be treated poorly, regardless of the consequences. Savannah had made a crucial miscalculation. She had assumed that because she held the power of the platform, she could say whatever she wanted. She had assumed that Samuel would just go along with it because walking off a major morning show would be career suicide. But she had forgotten something important. When you have reached the level that Samuel L. Jackson has reached, when you have proven yourself over and over again, you do not need to put up with disrespect. You can walk away. The interview was supposed to last 20 minutes. It lasted barely 10 before everything fell apart. Those 10 minutes, though, revealed something profound about power dynamics in media. It showed that hosts do not have unlimited power. They cannot say whatever they want without consequences. And when they abuse their position, when they use their platform to belittle rather than illuminate, they risk losing everything. As Samuel left the building that morning, he got into his car and drove away. He did not look back. He did not second-guess himself. He knew he had done the right thing. Sometimes standing up for yourself means walking away. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is refuse to participate in your own humiliation. Inside the studio, the remaining segments of the show went on, but the energy was completely different. Savannah tried to continue as if nothing had happened, but everyone could see she was rattled. Her confidence was gone. That smug certainty she had carried into the interview had evaporated the moment Samuel called her out. The incident became a teaching moment for the entire industry. It showed that guests are not just content to be consumed. They are human beings who deserve respect. And when that respect is not given, they have every right to withdraw their participation. What made Samuel's exit so impactful was the calm authority with which he executed it. He did not storm off in a blind rage. He did not throw things or cause a scene. He simply stated his boundaries, and when those boundaries were not respected, he left. That kind of self-possession, that kind of dignity, is rare. It requires confidence not just in yourself, but in your worth. Savannah had questioned whether Samuel was still relevant, whether he still deserved the roles he was getting. His response answered that question more powerfully than any words could. By refusing to tolerate her disrespect, by walking away from one of the biggest morning shows in the country, he demonstrated exactly why he is still one of the most respected figures in Hollywood. Because he knows his value, and he will not let anyone diminish it. The conversation between them had started with subtle digs, the kind that can be brushed off or ignored. But Savannah kept pushing, kept poking, kept trying to get a reaction, and she got one, just not the one she wanted. She wanted Samuel to get defensive, to stumble over his words, to give her a moment of vulnerability that she could exploit. Instead, she got someone who refused to play the game, someone who saw through her tactics and called them out directly. "You are trying to tear me down for what? For ratings?" Those words cut to the heart of what was really happening. Savannah was not asking questions to enlighten her audience. She was asking questions to create drama, to manufacture a moment that would go viral. And it did go viral, but not in the way she hoped. The public response was swift and decisive. People rallied behind Samuel. They saw him as someone who stood up to media bullying. They saw Savannah as someone who abused her position and got exactly what she deserved. The power dynamic that she thought was firmly in her control had been completely reversed in a matter of minutes. What happens when a host mistakes their platform for immunity? What happens when they think being on camera gives them the right to say anything? They learn a hard lesson. They learn that respect is not given automatically. It must be earned. And when you disrespect someone who has earned their place through decades of work, you do not get to hide behind your title or your show or your network. Samuel's exit was not just about that one interview. It was about something much bigger. It was about an industry that often treats its talent as disposable. It was about a culture that values youth over experience, novelty over excellence. It was about hosts who think their job is to tear people down rather than build them up. By walking off that set, Samuel sent a message. He sent it to Savannah, to the producers, to the network, and to every other interviewer who might think they can get away with similar behavior. The message was simple but powerful. I will not be disrespected. I do not care who you are or what platform you represent. Treat me with dignity, or I am gone. The beauty of the moment was in its simplicity. There were no lawyers involved, no publicists running interference, no carefully crafted statements. Just one person saying enough is enough and backing that up with action. In a world where so much is calculated and stage-managed, that raw authenticity was striking. Savannah tried to recover. She tried to spin it as Samuel being unable to handle tough questions. But anyone who watched the exchange could see the truth. Her questions were not tough. They were mean-spirited. They were designed to humiliate, not illuminate. And when she got called out for it, she could not handle it. The person who could not handle the moment was her, not Samuel. The incident also revealed the limitations of the morning show format. These shows thrive on conflict, on drama, on moments that can be clipped and shared. But there is a line between creating compelling television and being cruel. Savannah crossed that line. She thought she could manufacture a moment by pushing Samuel, but she pushed too hard. And the moment she created was one that made her look petty and small, while Samuel looked dignified and strong. In the aftermath, people debated what Savannah could have done differently. The answer was obvious. She could have asked about his craft. She could have asked about his preparation for the role. She could have asked about working with the director or the other actors. She could have treated him like the accomplished professional he is, rather than trying to make him defend his right to exist in the industry. But she chose confrontation. She chose to make it personal, and that choice cost her dearly. Because once you lose the respect of your audience, once they see you as someone who punches down rather than up, it is very hard to get that back. Samuel's walk-off became legendary not because it was loud or dramatic in a theatrical sense, but because it was so definitive. There was no ambiguity, no room for interpretation. He was done, and everyone knew it. The way he removed his microphone, tossed it on the chair, and walked off without looking back. That was the action of someone who knew exactly what they were doing and had no doubts about it. The conversation had lasted only minutes, but in those minutes, everything changed. The power shifted. The narrative flipped. The person who was supposed to be in control lost it completely, and the person who was supposed to be the subject became the one calling the shots. This might be your show, but that does not give you the right to disrespect your guests. Those words echoed long after Samuel left, because they were true. Having a platform does not give you unlimited power, it gives you responsibility. And when you abuse that responsibility, when you use your platform as a weapon rather than a tool for connection, you lose the right to complain when people refuse to participate. Savannah had every advantage. She was on her home turf. She had her producers backing her. She had control of the cameras, the editing, the narrative. But none of that mattered when faced with someone who simply refused to accept poor treatment. All her power evaporated the moment Samuel decided he was done. The incident became a case study in what not to do as an interviewer. It showed that audience loyalty is not automatic, that guests are not there to be your punching bag. That respect is a two-way street, and if you do not give it, you should not expect to receive it. For Samuel, walking off was not a difficult decision, it was the obvious one. He had been in the industry long enough to know his worth. He had proven himself over and over. He did not need to sit there and be insulted. He did not need to smile and pretend everything was fine. He could leave, and so he did. The simplest acts are often the most powerful: standing up, removing a microphone, walking away. These small physical actions carried enormous weight because of what they represented. They represented self-respect. They represented boundaries. They represented the refusal to be diminished by someone who thought their platform made them untouchable. Savannah learned that morning that platforms can be fragile things, that the power they confer is conditional, that when you abuse that power, when you use it to hurt rather than help, it can disappear in an instant. One moment, you are in complete control. The next, you are standing alone on an empty set, trying to figure out what just happened. What just happened was accountability. What just happened was consequence. What just happened was someone powerful enough to walk away actually doing it, and that made all the difference. The interview that was supposed to promote a movie became about something much more important. It became about how we treat people, about the respect we show or do not show, about the lines that should not be crossed and what happens when they are. It became about dignity and self-worth and the courage it takes to defend both. Samuel L. Jackson walked into that studio as a guest. He walked out as someone who reminded everyone watching what self-respect looks like, not through violence or aggression, but through the simple act of refusing to accept less than he deserved. And in doing so, he created a moment that would be remembered far longer than any movie promotion ever could.